Good job. We got a lot of stuff going on this weekend, but you're breaking down.
Trying to get it out there quick, man, because there is a lot going on.
You're breaking down this week's Boxcino tournament, and we got two of the semifinals, both two fights in the junior middleweight division and two fights in the heavyweight division. Why don't you start off with the two fights in the junior middleweight division? Let me know what you think, and which one you're going to pick first.
All right, first off in the junior middleweight bracket, we're going to pick up Stanislav Skorokhod and John Thompson. You know, we got the 25-year-old Skorokhod, and we got the 26-year-old Thompson. We got a 5'9" guy against a 6'1" guy. Thompson, a last-minute replacement for Cleto Pendavaris, and he's a tall, slim guy. He kind of has that Tommy Hearns height, but no Tommy Hearns attributes. Doesn't look like much. Looks as if a good breeze comes along, he might go down. But in his last fight against Ricardo Pinell, who replaced. He kind of, weathered an early storm. At times, he seemed like he was in a lot of trouble, but he showed a better chin than, what people thought. I think Pinell himself kind of overlooked him. But Pinell, nothing to be impressed with. Even before going into that bout, Bill, he had never gained victory over an opponent with a winning record. Outside the fact Thompson came in on short notice, Pinell was the favorite. Thompson has a good jab, decent boxing skills, but he lacks, and again, lacks. He lacks a solid jab for a guy his size, and even when he is able to get the jab punching, the jab going, he lacks the power to do much afterwards. He doesn't really have the ability to keep anybody off of him, so his opponents don't do much damage. His best attribute is he can be awkward at times, and he knows how to create distance. Problem with that is the way he creates distance is when a guy gets inside, he ties him up, and he looks for the referee to step in, separate him, and create his distance so he can get that jab going again. If his opponent is able to stay busy on the inside, despite Thompson's attempt at tying them up, the referee won't have to do that job for him. Thompson also does not fight tall. He takes away his own height, and he also keeps his left hand low. That's how Frank Galarza, who's not really a big puncher, was able to knock him out with a one punch in the second round on Showbox in January 2014. And outside Pinell, Thompson's best win to date is over Giovanni Rodriguez. On the other side, Skorokhod came in this tournament with the least amount of experience as a pro, but he has a very impressive amateur career with over 200 fights. A lot of people say the amateurs don't matter, but you know what? It really does, especially on the level he fought on. He is the type of guy who has learned patience, and he learned his fundamentals there. Skorokhod, even though he only has 9 wins, 7 of them came by stoppage. He's not a one-punch guy like a lot of the other Eastern European fighters we'd like to see, but he places his punch well. And like I said, he's very patient. He also has that type of skin like Triple G. He reddens easily. He looks like he's taking more punishment than he really is. We've seen that in the Michael Moore fight. But Skorokhod knows how to roll with the punches. He doesn't get hit flush too often. He's a great counterpuncher. With the type of power Thompson has to offer, even if he does get hit flush, he's in little danger. Skorokhod, when he hurts a guy, he doesn't get reckless. He makes sure every punch counts. He doesn't go in there and look for the knockout. He doesn't get drawn into a guy with more experience who might be playing possum. While his resume is not filled with killers, he's beaten more experienced guys than Thompson, and he's never looked vulnerable. The way he broke down Moore reinforces what I had said about his overall skill set. I look for Skorokhod to stop Thompson inside of 4. Too much experience from his amateur days, too patient, he has too many fundamentals, too much poise in the ring. Final prediction, Skorokhod, 4th round KO.
Well, Thompson, I guess his Cinderella story will end, according to you, tomorrow night, and I'm not so sure I disagree. The second junior middleweight fight puts Garaspian up against Brandon Adams. Tell us about that one.
Brandon Adams, the younger guy, 25 years old, only 5'9". Gasparian, 29 years old, 5'11". Gasparian, the most experienced fighter of the bracket. He has an awkward style, but a slow start, horrible defense. But if he can figure out your timing, he can make things difficult for you. Gasparian is better on the inside, leaning on the fighter, and that's where he has his most success. He has 3 losses. One came early in his career when he made his debut in 2005. I don't take much stock in that. But once his career got going and he stepped up in competition, he lost, and fairly one-sidedly. 2009, he lost a 6-round decision to Jermell Charlo, and in 2012, he was easily outpointed by Jesse Vargas. I don't think he won a single round. Outside of good chin and awkwardness, I really don't see nothing special in Vito Gasparian. Limited defense and limited power. Just a note, he is a fighter who started at 6 years old, and he himself has over 200 amateur fights. But a lot of that skill didn't carry over. He doesn't carry over a lot of his fundamentals, and those amateur fights were never on international basis. Across from him, Brandon Adams is a fast, strong, heavy-hitting young fighter who gets better every time out. He does not need to stop his opponents to win. He's shown that. Adams was a finalist in last year's middleweight Boxcino tournament, losing the decision to Willie Monroe Jr. He did well. He was beaten by a more experienced fighter who has a great amateur pedigree, which Brandon Adams doesn't have, and he shows that he can take a punch from a true middleweight. Not that Willie Monroe Jr. is a big power puncher, but he is a legitimate middleweight, and he's a big guy. Adams has done something big, considering that he has stopped 11 of his 16 opponents. The fact he went in there 10 hard rounds with somebody like Willie Monroe Jr. and came back a better fighter speaks for his natural ability. When he went in there with Monroe, he took that as a learning experience. He never complained. Gasparian not the boxer that Monroe is, nor does he have the power Monroe does. Not that Monroe is a big hitter, like I said, but because of the size difference, Brandon Adams has nothing to worry about. I think Adams, who's such a fast starter, is going to come out strong. He's going to overwhelm Gasparian. He's going to stop him in the 3 or the 4th. He's never going to allow Gasparian to fight on the inside, get into his rhythm that benefits his awkward style, and he's going to run over Gasparian, and that's how I see that one happening. And I see that happening within the 4th, maybe the 5th round, if Adams needs the 1st round to figure out exactly on how to land cleanly.
You know, Brandon Adams, I love the kid. He's always smiling. I got to meet him and chat with him a couple of times. But the one thing, he does exchange. He will get in there and get into a firefight. And if he needs something to improve on, it needs, I believe, patience is one of those things, and to keep his hands up. So it'll be interesting to see if Gasparian can take advantage of that. Now the heavyweights, the guys that everybody likes to go see. First matchup is Donovan Dennis going up against Razvan Kajanu, a guy that we had on this show. What's your thoughts on that one?
I agree with you 100% about Adams real quick, but like I said, I just think that Gasparian is not a guy with the power enough, to put Adams in any sort of danger. Maybe if he steps up in competition, that could be a big problem down the road. Now, Razvan Kajanu against Donovan Dennis, good fight right there. Kajanu, 6'7.5", is a big guy, 28 years old, long reach, no pop to his punches. His stoppage wins have come against guys who average 2 or 3 times as many losses than wins. His win over Ed Fountain last time out came down to a tie-breaking round. Though he's well-traveled, he's fought in China, Europe, Australia, and the United States. He's been in soft, but being well-traveled, he's seen a lot of different styles. Aside from Fountain, who was undefeated when they met, his best opponent to date was Manuel Alberto Pacheco. He himself has never beat a fighter ranked in the top 100 or anyone with a winning record. Kajanu was easily backed up by Fountain at times, and because he lacks power, he's going to be the perfect opponent for Donovan Dennis. Dennis is 11-1 with 9 KOs, a big guy himself at 6'4". He has some serious power. 9 of his 11 wins came by stoppage. His lone KO loss was to Nate Haven, but that was because he got caught with his hands down as he was trying to set himself. Nothing to do with the fact that Haven, really was much stronger, hits any harder than he does, because I don't think so. Anybody who gets caught by a guy the size of Nate Haven, flush like that, is going to go down. So I don't question Donovan Dennis's whiskers. Dennis can punch, and he can box, and he has good defense. Just because he got caught by Haven doesn't mean he has bad defense. Haven just landed the right punch at the right time. If they met 100 more times, as I stated the last time I broke down the Boxcino, Dennis would win all 100. I see the first few rounds being dull, where Dennis looks for his range to get his jab going and find a way on the inside. He's going to rock the big man from Romania. My prediction is Donovan Dennis is going to stop Kajanu in the 5th round.
I got to disagree with you. Kajanu, I thought, did something. First of all, he's got Buddy McGirt in his corner, which I think is a huge asset. I think the corner is going to be superior to Donovan Dennis in his corner. The other thing that I really admired about Kajanu is that he works the body viciously. I mean, and I think that's going to slow Donovan Dennis down. Now, I agree with you to the point where Kajanu just isn't really that skilled. He's got, a long way to go. And I think his biggest problem in his last fight was that he wasn't actually listening to Buddy McGirt. So if he cleaned that up and listened to Buddy McGirt and is able to get a couple of body shots early on Donovan Dennis, I think Kajanu is going to come out on top. Now these fights are 8-rounders, so it's not like they got a hell of a lot of time to establish a game plan. So it ought to be interesting. But good breakdown on that one, and I like that fight. And finally, the last one, I think a lot of people believe features the future winner of this division. Lenroy Thomas is going up against Andre Fedosov. Tell us about this one.
All right. I agree with exactly what you said about Cajano. If he does make those changes in the corner, it could go the opposite way. I'm just going by what I've seen so far in the Boxcino from him. So what happens on fight night, if that adjustment's made, you very well could be right. Now, I agree 100% that this guy is the absolute favorite, Andre Fedosov. He's going in there against, a big guy, an awkward guy, in Lenroy Thomas. He's 19-3, but he doesn't have a lot of power. He's got a long reach. It's just about 80 inches. But, his best win is over a very out-of-shape and very inactive Jason Estrada, who entered the fight on a loss and was sort of a last-minute replacement. Thomas has been stopped 2 times, and in both those fights he was unable to deal with the fact that he had an opponent who came forward. And, one, he lost to journeyman Aaron Lyons, who who came in off of back-to-back losses. He only had a 30% KO ratio. So what's that make you think about Lenroy Thomas's jaw? The other time he was blown out by former Olympian Dominic Breazeale in 4 rounds, which isn't, so bad, because Breazeale's a big guy and he can punch. But, when you look at who's standing across the ring from him, Andre Fedosov, the 29-year-old, he's the smallest guy in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken, but he has the highest KO ratio. He has a 26-3 record. He blasted out Nate Haven in less than a round last February. Not that was much of a feat, because I think we all knew that was coming. But Fedosov, he has a pretty solid chin. His lone stoppage loss came against Cuts, not that he was hurt, and that was against a slick Bryant Jennings, who Fedosov was unable to really catch him and land anything significant. That's what really lost that fight for him. Fedosov, when he comes inside there, he does it with authority, and, he likes to sit there and put that straight right hand to the body and then come back upstairs with that left to the head. And, considering the fact that, Lenroy Thomas has been stopped by much lesser guys, and the fact that Lenroy Thomas in his whole career, and I've studied a lot of fights of his, has never been able to keep off anybody who's come forward. In fact, when he gets hit hard, he kind of freezes, he stands against the ropes, and he's just there for the pickings. And against somebody like Fedosov, that's a bad idea. I don't even think this one's going to go 3 rounds, to be honest with you. Fedosov is going to stop him in probably a highlight knockout.
I would be quick to agree with you with Fedosov. My only hang-up with Fedosov is that he seems to be one-dimensional. He's a seek and destroy kind of a guy. That's all he does. He bides his time. He takes the punches in order to land his. He's not that big of a guy. He's probably the smallest heavyweight in this tournament. And Lenroy Thomas, I agree with everything you said about Lenroy, except Lenroy Thomas, in the last round of the first fight that he had in Boxcino, he did what he needs to do to have a chance against Andre Fedosov. Use his height and reach. When he does use his height and reach, he does actually have a decent jab, and he's got decent footwork. He's able to move around that ring pretty fluently when he does it. The problem is that he didn't do it. He only did it a partial way through the first round, and he did it all of the last round to get his win in his last fight. Andre Fedosov, like you said, is going to give him nonstop pressure, and it's going to be interesting to see if Lenroy Thomas can keep this guy off of him with his height and reach. Because if he can't, I think you're right. I think Fedosov is going to destroy this guy.
This fight, pretty much is the equivalent to the Brandon Adams Vito Gasparian fight. It's not so much that anything that Fedosov does overall is special, other than the fact he's strong and he really comes in there and never stops coming forward. And like Brandon Adams, who's becoming a better boxer every time we see him. He's strong. He comes forward a lot. He is a bit reckless, but neither Gasparian or Leroy Thomas has the type of power to give either one of these guys a problem against different opponents. I don't know if my predictions would be the same, but considering the fact that these are both come forward guys who like to really pressure you and who really rely on breaking their opponent down and going for the big shot, I think the guys that they're going to be in with there that night, Bill, are the exact type of opponents that, because of the lack of pop, aren't able to hold them off, and, kind of fits into their hands perfectly.
Let me ask you this, as we get into these semifinals for the Boxcino for both weight divisions this year, this tournament, I should say, compared to last year's, do you think that the quality level is the same? Do you think that these fights are as I don't want to say as even or whatever as last time, but they had a certain level of excitement, anticipation last year. And listening to you break them down, I can see that they're decent fights. But where do you think they stand compared to last year's? Do you think last year's was better, or you think they're about the same?
I think last year's was better, to be honest with you. Last year, we had better boxers overall in there. I think, the early, we had some surprises in there. We had some veterans in there. We didn't expect Brandon Adams to go in there and walk through Daniel Edward. We've seen him grow as a fighter. But then, also on the other hand, we've seen some guys who came in there, like Donovan Dennis, maybe a little bit overconfident, and they corrected a few mistakes. And then, on top of that, we had, some guys that we really had been looking at already before the tournament even started, like Peter Petrov, who was kind of a favorite, but, there was a little bit of a question going on there, and, we were curious on whether or not he was going to step up. There was questions on Willie Monroe Jr. going into that tournament as well. We knew that Willie was a slick boxer, but we didn't know Willie was going to be able to perform consistently. So I think last year, on top of the fact that fans had been looking forward so much to it, and the fact that, there was guys that we had already been keeping an eye out on entering the tournament, and we were just wondering exactly how they would rise to the occasion, that put a little bit more, excitement on last year's bracket. Not that this year, it's bad, because we have seen guys in there, put on some good performances, and it's always good to see how guys are going to do as last-minute replacements, and it's always good to see how guys that come in there looking to make a name for themselves do against more experienced guys who you think that normally on a regular basis would beat them. So it's kind of a toss-up both ways. But then again, of course, everybody loves when the big men fight, because there's nothing better than a heavyweight fight, even a weak heavyweight fights, because all boxing fans love knockouts. And at 154 pounds, my thing with Brandon Adams is he's really this is really his weight class, and we're seeing a whole new fighter in here, not only boxing wise, but his power is really up when he's going in there against other 154-pound fighters. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I've enjoyed both of them so far, but I think last year's bracket was a little bit better overall, had a little bit more talent to it.
All right, Dax, I got to take a break. Great job as usual, and we'll look forward to you next time, man.
All right, have a good one, everybody. Speak to you soon.
I'll be back in 2.